Hi everybody, welcome to this our first Outvise Webinar, Artificial Intelligence as a Business Accelerator. My name is Pau Cerda, and I will introduce the webinar today. I'm co-founder of Outvise, and well, as you can see, I'm confined at home, so well, maybe my kids appear at any time. I hope that doesn't happen. So let's go through it. Well, we have people from all over the world. We have people from Germany, from UK, from Spain, South Africa, Netherlands, Emirates, Saudi. I think almost 20 countries. So we welcome all of them. And yeah, in these current conditions, we wish that everybody stays healthy, right? Which is the most important thing today. We have for today we have invited a master of artificial intelligence. Is Dennis Holovadi. Dennis has more than 30 projects in his shoulders. He's based in Munich, very active in the whole German artificial intelligence community. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Paul, for the introduction.
Yeah, good. Look, this thing of the webinar is something that okay, 1 second. Let's see if I can switch the slides. 1 second. Yeah. Well, the thing of the webinar is something that we always had in mind since we created the company 4 years ago. And yeah, with the whole confinement, we thought that was a good moment to start. And we thought to start with the most important thing, right? It's and the most important thing is always data, right? Whenever you start a project, you always think data first, right? And that's this track of webinars that we are preparing, which will be dedicated to data, right? But and this is kind of a brief of what Harvard Business Review think for the next years, what's coming, what will be the hot topics, and 4 of them are related to data: data science, data analytics, data visualizations, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Right? But we think also in having other webinars. We think about talking about cloud, about software engineering, about talking about Internet of Things, IoT, 5G, talking about security, maybe in blockchain. So, well, I mean, data is for us the beginning of a series of webinars that we'll have in the future. And the idea in the end is that we help our clients and we help our experts to stay always up to date. So, a few words about who we are, and then we quickly switch to Dennis. We are one of the top platforms for independent experts and freelancers, independent consultants, with 3 key selling propositions, right? We have the best quality, top-notch experts, being very fast in response. With 24 hours, we are capable to deliver CVs and global reach, right? We are in Europe, we are in UK, we are in Germany, we are in Italy, we are in Middle East, we are in Africa. We are, I think last year we invoiced 20-something countries, right? And we have a very innovative approach. I mean, clients directly can access the platform and search directly for their profiles, right? Just briefly, why we think we have the best platform: because we ensure quality. Quality is the most important thing for us, and we ensure quality with basically 2 systems: a technology system, a technology side, where with more than 700, almost 1,000 skills, we are capable to profile the people and to give and provide with super matches in terms of content, but also because we have a network of scouts who are able to interview the people and ensure that we deliver the best candidates. Right? These scouts, they come from the same community, so they are very specialized people. For example, and specialized in cybersecurity in London in banking, who is able to interview a cybersecurity freelancer, or an artificial intelligence expert who is expert in for example, machinery, right? And that person is capable to perform that interview. So the balance of both, the what's more the technology side and the human side of the collective intelligence is what help us to provide with the best quality. Overall, 4 years in the market, we reached the mark of 24,000 experts, which we feel very proud of, right? It has not been easy, but in the end, we managed to deliver that number, right? So very fast, 24,700 skills, 48 hours for response. This is Outvise. But let's switch to the important topic of the day, which is artificial intelligence. So I will hand over to Dennis. Dennis, I will stop sharing the screen if I can, and I hand over to you so you can.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul. Let me also share my screen. 1 second. All right, seems to be fine. All right, so let's kick it off. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Paul, for the introduction and for the opportunity to speak to all of you. So today the topic, you know it already, it's artificial intelligence. I would like to walk you through a couple of things today, which you can see on the agenda. First of all, I would like to establish some kind of common understanding of what is artificial intelligence so that we speak the same language and know what we understand under this notion. At the second point, I will briefly introduce a couple of business applications of AI. We will go into several case studies so that you can see what are these applications, how to do them, and which kind of impact they can create in the company. At point 3, we will dive into how to use AI in your company, how to implement data science, what is needed for that, which skills, and how the process looks like. And at the very end, we'll discuss the next steps to help you understand how you can dive into this journey. All right, so let's kick it off. So first point is, what is artificial intelligence anyway? I would like to introduce you to a couple of definitions first, and then show you several examples of what AI is capable of doing right now. So there are a couple of classical understandings and classical definitions of artificial intelligence. You can see 2 of them on this slide. The first one from the perspective of computer science. So in computer science, AI is just a branch of computer science dealing with the simulation of intelligent behavior in computers. There's also another approach which talks about behavioral, since it's called behavioral approach. And in this understanding, the AI is the capability of the machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. As you can see, the first one is more research-oriented, the second one is more action-oriented. However, these 2 approaches is not the end of the story, because one of the definitions that I like personally the most is the next one by Pamela McCorduck. As soon as it becomes possible, it's not AI. This statement is also being called AI effect, and essentially talks about the fact that as soon as a particular algorithm, particular innovation becomes possible, it stops being as interesting as it was before. It loses this, you know, sound of being cool and the name of AI, respectively. Although the technology itself might be super cool. One of the examples is anomaly detection. When you try to find some big shifts in the patterns of your data. Some while ago, it was also called AI, but as soon as it has become possible and machine learning algorithms have been developed to detect it, it has become anomaly detection and not AI. All right. So I would like to show you a couple of examples and comment to them so that you see what is modern AI actually is capable of. And for example, this first video that I'm going to show you, it focuses on the second definition that we have mentioned about the intelligent behavior, about the agents that do things. I will play the video and I will briefly explain what different parts of this video actually mean.
Dear fellow Scott.
We don't need the audio here. I will comment on the video. Essentially, OpenAI is the organization that has been founded by Elon Musk that deals with the research about artificial intelligence. And in this video, there has been an environment simulated with different agents that play hide and seek. Essentially, these agents, if you see the red ones, are trying to find the blue ones. They're running around each other, and as soon as the blue person gets into the side of the red one, they lose the game. And then this game has been iterated many times, and the agents have learned what they have to perform. As you can see in the beginning, they were running very much randomly through the area, not really doing anything interesting. But if we look a bit later, you can see that the blue agents have learned that these bricks can help them hide from the red agents. This is something that has not been programmed. This is something that these agents have learned themselves by knowing the rules of the environment. If we look a little bit further, as you see, this thing repeats and repeats. If we look a little bit further in the video, we can notice, look closely now at the red agent. The red agents are pulling the ramp, towards the wall, and they are able to jump over the wall. This is the behavior that they have learned. It has not been programmed so far. And they do this all over again, until, as you have noticed, blue agents see that the ramp is essentially important for them to win this challenge. And what they do, they pull the ramp inside of their little room, and then they lock themselves out. And this is what they keep doing and keep doing. This type of artificial intelligence is called reinforcement learning. And basically, it is about putting different agents, usually in games and things like that, into an environment, defined environment by the researchers or developers, where they can act repeatedly. As you can see, they have different sceneries. This one that you have seen before is not the only one. They are acting in different environments and learning every time what they're supposed to do. All right, so much to the reinforcement learning. The next example, what I wanted to show you, is called generative models, and those models can create things out of nothing. Maybe some of you have heard about Joe Rogan. He is, I guess, American comedian and podcaster on YouTube, and what he does essentially, he invites famous people to talk to him to make themselves more famous even. And because of that, he has a lot of recordings of his voice, of his mimics, and everything available to the public. So one company, Decra AI, they decided to use that, and they decided to generate his voice, to generate new words that he has never said before. So pay attention to this audio, what we'll be playing in a second, because this is everything completely machine generated. And just listen to how it sounds. I will turn on the audio. Chimp hockey team.
Friends, I've got something new to tell all of you. I've decided to sponsor a hockey team made up entirely of chimps. I'm tired of people telling me that chimps are not capable of kicking human ass in sports. Chimps are just superior athletes, and these chimps have been working out hard. They're throwing kettlebells, battle ropes, everything. I've got them on a strict diet of bone broth and elk meat. These chimps will rip your balls off. God damn, it's impressive. All I got to say is, see you on the ice, folks.
All right, I think this little example was enough to understand which kind of good quality of audio artificial intelligence can generate so far. When I have seen this for the first time, I was pretty impressed, because even a couple of years ago, this quality of audio was not possible. The industry didn't know this kind of audio quality. And now, I think this article was published around 7-9 months ago. Now it is possible, and it can be used by the general public. I also have a couple of examples which are relevant for today. Let's put it that way. And in particular, examples about the diagnostics of the coronavirus. Some of you might have heard that Alibaba, which is the Chinese eBay, has created a new AI system that can detect coronavirus in seconds with 96% accuracy. What that means, essentially, it means that the AI system that they have built is looking at pictures of the lungs of the patients, and judging by the picture, they can say whether the person has the coronavirus or not. A couple of facts about this story was that they have trained it on 5,000 images, and most importantly, that around 100 healthcare facilities in China have been using the Alibaba's AI as of time of writing of this article. This is a system that is called convolutional neural network. This is an example of so-called supervised learning in artificial intelligence. This is when AI system has an example and has a label attached to that example and can learn from those labels by being repeated many, many times. And as you can see, this example is more real life right now, unlike the first that you have seen. this is the example that actually is helping to save people's lives. I have another one like that, also related to Corona, but from a little bit different perspective. As some of you might know, Taiwan is being praised around the globe for their immediate and very effective response to the coronavirus. And one of the reasons they were able to achieve that was big data analytics and artificial intelligence. Because what they have done, among other things, of course, they have used the insurance and customs database to do the analytics to identify the most likely people that are most likely to have coronavirus. And they have tracked those people thanks to the mobile GPS data, and they have either asked them to quarantine themselves, and also they have tracked down the people that have been in touch with. It might sound like a story from the Big Brother or something like that. The point being that they were able to stop the virus. Even as of today, Taiwan has just a couple of hundred of cases, if I'm not mistaken. And to a large extent, they have been able to do that by combining the data and training their systems to identify the patients, the people that are likely to become patients of coronavirus conditions. All right. I would quickly ask you to let me know in the question and answer section if you have any questions so far about the definition of AI or examples that are here right now. Feel free to write the questions. I will have a look at them later on. At the end, we will have a Q&A session with Paul. But please write them if something wasn't clear so that I can maybe explain in the end once more. But now, what we will do, we will go into the, I guess, most interesting part, most relevant part for many businesses. Well, okay, how do I use AI in my business? What are the applications? What are the possibilities? And I have prepared 4 case studies for you that I would like to show. Those case studies are those that I have worked on in some extent. Well, 2 of them I've done completely. 1 of them is part of what I've done. Some of them I have sourced from third-party sources. You have to also imagine that these case studies are not exhaustive, that there are many more possibilities for AI in your company. With that being said, let's jump in. So, first of all, why we consider AI to be the business accelerator? Why it is so important, how it can help your business. There are many things that we can talk about. Here on the screen, you can see those that I consider the most important. First one being the customer analytics. This is the ability to understand your customer, their behavior in real time as it has never been possible before. Second point is about intelligent processes. Intelligent processes allow you to streamline every activity that you do, for example, in procurement, in accounting, in sales, the way that you want to see it. And you can use AI to accelerate the process, the underlying process that is running as a backbone of your company. And the third important point of AI is to assist in decision-making. Because what many AI systems do, they deliver some kind of prediction for you, and they assign a measure how certain they are about this prediction, for example, accuracy score. So using those predictions, what you can do, you can use AI to make day-to-day decisions, for example, about approving a purchase requisition or answering a ticket in your IT service management system. Generally speaking, AI allows you to run your business faster, to deliver faster, to make your customers happier, to ensure higher quality in many different ways. And now I will show you some of those ways in the case studies. So the first one, this is the case study that I really like because it's relatively simple. It's very tangible. So think about the cash discounts that your company can get if you pay your supplier earlier than the due date. Many invoices have this kind of term or many payment terms that you can draw a cash discount, for example, 2% or 3% less of the sum that is on the invoice if you pay 1 week earlier. The problem with that is, though, that cash discount, you might get, well, you have to pay less, but when you pay earlier, you lose the liquidity. You essentially lose the working capital that is running in your company, that is making money for you. So for an enterprise, it's always a decision that they have to balance whether they take the cash discount and say goodbye to their money a bit earlier, or they keep the money and make this money working in form of the working capital. So this is often non-trivial problem. Many companies, they often just decide on one strategy. Either we take cash discount or we just always late with the payment. The thing is that it depends. It depends on many different factors. And I have been building solutions for some of the customers based on their accounting data to solve this. So the problem was that the companies were struggling to decide if they need to pay early or wait and improve working capital. And the solution that we implemented was data integration out of their ERP systems. It was SAP ECC system, FI module, if you're familiar with these. But it can work also on Oracle system, on Microsoft Dynamics, or any other kind of ERP system for that matter. And what we were able to achieve at different customers, we were able to save between 2 and 5% of annual revenue, just thanks to this optimization. And again, these kind of projects, they're relatively well streamlined because you know where to find the data and what to do with it and how to make your optimization and prediction. We were also able to optimize and streamline the payment process. Oh, sorry. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
So we optimize the payment process to achieve maximum efficiency. What that means, for example, in this particular example, we optimize the batch payments, because many of you who have worked with accounting would know that many accounting departments, let's say, do 1 payment per month or 2 payments per month every Tuesday at 5 p.m. And they run some kind of script, or they do it maybe manually. The thing is that it's not always the best thing to do for your company. Since many invoices have many different due dates and many different cash discount due dates, you need to find the optimal date to run your batch payment. Otherwise, you're leaving the money on the table. And how much? Well, from 2 to 5%. And well, the third finding in this case study was that we identified the deviations from the agreed upon payment terms with suppliers and their reality. I mean, this is also no surprise probably for many of you that the real payments don't always come according to the payment terms, but we were able to pinpoint them, predict them, and yeah, the action was to communicate with suppliers and change and renegotiate payment terms. All right. The next case study is about process compliance in change control. This is a pretty specific thing, particularly change control process is being used in pharmaceutical companies. This was a very specific project. I put it here because it's interesting in terms of compliance, because there are many processes in different companies that necessitate high compliance. Banks are, for example, also in that category. So the problem that we had was that the company, the client, was subject to exceptionally high standards of so-called good manufacturing practice, which is a worldwide standard, more or less, in the pharmaceutical industry. And when you are wrong with your compliance, when you don't follow the process exactly and precisely, when you make mistakes, it can cost you millions and millions of dollars or euro, because the medicine that you have produced and developed may be taken off the market. So what we did, we analyzed the change control process to identify the non-compliant changes and prevent their occurrence. We identified the patterns, why they occur, how they occur, and thanks to that, we achieved nearly 100% process compliance in change control. And change control is basically about changing a particular ingredient of a medicine. So yeah, we achieved almost 100% process compliance. We identified and separated different process stages based on data instead of rule of thumb, which was the case in the client company. What that means, again, it means responsibility areas, because different departments are responsible for different parts of the process. For example, it can be research and development, it can be production, it can be quality control. They were kind of intermixed in the company, so we identified with data where exactly they start and end, which was very helpful for change management in the company. And thanks to that, we formalized responsibility areas of the individual departments for corrective action, preventive action on those changes. Yeah, next one, automation of applications and approvals. So the problem here was that a financial company needed to accelerate their processes, approval processes for applications for funding. The solution was pretty simple, well, relatively simple actually, at least we can describe it in 3 words: data lake, data cleaning, and automation. In practice, it was a bigger project because every kind of data lake project can grow. Nevertheless, the results of this case study was also quite impressive. Thanks to the big data analytics and AI that was implemented on the customer's data, they have shortened the application cycle from 8 days to just 2 days, 4-time shortening. It's pretty impressive. They have eliminated errors and improved efficiency by 70%, which is, as you can imagine, is also very important. And they have also created the global consistency of data across 24 countries, which again is actually a huge thing to do for globally oriented companies, to have all of their data in different countries, let's say South Africa, China, USA, Italy, that they all are synchronized. It's not always that easy to do, which has also been achieved in this case study, thanks to automation and AI applications. And the last one was the maintenance optimization. This study looks the shortest. In terms of monetary impact, it was probably the biggest, or one of the biggest, because many production companies, not necessarily production companies, telecom companies also have to do maintenance, and machinery companies as well, electric technology. In this particular case, it was a production company's car production. Their problem was that the maintenance was very lengthy. It was a very slow process, and the production downtime was very high. And well, this costs a lot of money. If the company is producing thousands of cars per day, then a couple of hours of maintenance or downtime can actually mean millions and dozens of millions of dollars of losses for them. So we had a couple of solutions implemented there. So part of the solution, is implemented on the process maintenance side, and another part is on the downtime side. So the result of the study was to prevent 72 cases of production downtime at this particular car manufacturer. This was General Motors in this case. I can say it because the study is publicly available, so it's no problem. Which is huge. It was done by deploying a bunch of sensors and image classification tools to predict when the downtime can occur, to recognize potential failure of the machines and predict it before it happens. So the maintenance time in the process could be shortened by 20%, which is quite a lot. And also the maintenance cost was reduced thanks to applications of data analytics and image classification. So yeah, these are the case studies. That's the business part. I think they're very interesting because they show the immediate impact of analytics, AI, and data science that it can have on your company. And with that, I would again invite you to write questions into the Q&A. I will come back to them at the end of the webinar. And yeah, you can ask questions, particular questions to the case studies, maybe how the process looked like. Happy to support you with that. So as the next part, probably you have heard the amazing case studies. Hopefully you can relate yourself to the situation. You can see, okay, why it could be useful for me. And maybe you're asking yourself, okay, how to use AI in my company? What do I do? What is necessary? And yeah, the next part of the webinar will be about that. How to apply, what to do, and how to make this happen. So first of all, I would like to introduce you to the methodology that I follow, which is pretty simple. In the beginning, you have to understand what is AI. And I can congratulate you. You are already halfway through the stage by listening to this webinar, because you are now already understanding a bit more of what AI is, where it can be applied, and which value it can generate. At the next stage, what you would need to do is to identify potential applications or use cases in your company. Essentially answering the question, what should we do? Where is the area of my company where AI can bring the most value? The third stage or step in the process is to implement some kind of solution. I always advise my clients to work first with the pilot plan, to apply something that is relatively small, that's something that delivers more or less immediate value, to understand how it works, to understand how the projects go, and so on. And then the next stage, you can do the evaluation. So you understand, okay, what went well, what went not so well, how much money we have generated, or which kind of other business impact we have achieved with AI. All right. So how do you do it? Well, you have to understand your value chain, because I personally don't really like people who are talking about the technological part of AI all the time, that it's the best future technology in the world. It is an amazing technology, and many things are already possible. I prefer, and I personally have, a very business-driven approach. So when I talk about the value of AI, I actually talk about your value chain. For example, here is a very simplified, of course, value chain, or the most important areas for a company in telecommunication industry. They need to procure some resources, they need to create service, provide the service, and then they need to sell the service to the customers. This is, of course, a very simplified version of it. But you as a professional, as a leader of your company's operations, or as a person working with those business leaders, you will need to understand how the company where I work is making money. What are the most important, the heaviest sort of parts of it? Because those parts often are where you find the most transactions, where you find the most cash, of course, and also the most inefficiency, because often those parts are the most complex and intertwined in many other parts of the organization, or maybe partners, suppliers, and so on. So analyze your supply chain, your value chain. Very important thing to do. How do you analyze the supply chain? What are you looking for? Well, essentially, in any kind of project like that, you're looking for some return on investment. And to get an ROI, you need a business case. Pretty clear. So business case in AI can go into different directions. It's not only about the monetary value that you can get from it, but it's also the analyzing these things that you see on the screen. So of course, it's the cost reduction or revenue growth. This is something I have mentioned in the first case study about the cash discount and working capital. This is a very clear cost reduction initiative, because you will spend less money, essentially, as simple as that. The next thing is to create new products or services, something that has not been possible before. For many companies recently, those have been chatbots that did not exist that much, let's say 5 years ago. But 3 years ago, they came into power, and this is how many companies' customer services operate right now. Another part of it is quality and service. Essentially, you have seen that on the maintenance case study, how you improve quality of your machines and also the production that you have. AI can help there. Sometimes you can assign a value to that, sometimes not so much, but it has influence on your reputation. And then essentially the fourth part, the user acceptance, which many people forget about, but which you should not definitely forget, because this is a very critical part. The user acceptance part decides whether some kind of AI solution is being used in your company or not. And obviously, if it's not used, it's not going to help. Like, people have to actually like it more than before with AI than without it. This is a crucial step. Very important thing to understand and consider in your business case. All right. The next part is the data science process. So, okay, you've listened about all of that. You have identified the most critical part in your company, for example, procurement. just for example. You identified which problems do you have there, which kind of applications. You have calculated some business cases, maybe approximately. What is happening after that, right? So after that, the data science process happens. Data science process starts with an understanding of a business problem. So this is what you have done before, right? So identifying your value chain, identifying the business case is what you've been doing before. And I give here a couple of examples how it can look like in practice. You know, like to understand your business problem, you say, our business needs more liquidity because or why, and so on. You explain after the research that you have done before. Or we lose too many customers, customers churn is high because we want to know why. So yeah, data science process starts here with the business, very important. Next part is to get the data. Of course, to do data science, to build AI solutions, you need the data. Without data, it's not possible. It just doesn't really exist without the data. It's like a fuel for your systems. If you don't have a fuel in your car, it's not going to go anywhere. So, sorry. So, to get the data, you may ask yourself, well, I don't have it. And I would argue that you most likely do have the data. At least, I would say above 200 or 300 employees in the company. It's almost always the case, at least in my practice, that they do have some kind of IT systems in place. And this could be, for example, SAP systems, it could be Oracle systems. It doesn't really matter which system you use, but some IT system that is storing the data, storing the transactions, storing the activities that you and your employees are performing in the company. Next question could be also, would it work with Excel? And well, surprisingly enough, sometimes yes. Sometimes you can do an export in Excel or CSV format, comma separated value format, and start there. Sometimes it works. I wouldn't bet my life on it. Let's say that it always works with CSV files, but it often does. Some simple use cases, especially, you can get more than you expect. Next step is to clean and prepare the data. This is the step which often gets overlooked. This is the step that data scientists like myself usually love to hate because it's time consuming and it's not so much fun. Essentially, you're removing null values or missing values. You're cleaning and removing the duplicates on the data. You're putting different parts of the data together to integrate them. You maybe extrapolate or fill in some values of the variables that you don't have. This is time-consuming process. So the better quality of the data you have, the better. This you also should consider in your business case estimation, especially for the pilot project. Try to look for the data that has the best quality for your first project because it's going to be much easier to implement it quickly. Next step is to explore the data, essentially to get basic understanding, and you can get some first answers on this step as well. For example, our average customer value is 500 euro or whatever the number is for you, or that we are slow in processing applications. Again, coming back to one of the case studies that I have shown before. And yeah, in the explorative stage, you build visualizations, you do some basic analyses, and you try to answer, yeah, very, very big and generic questions, I would say, about your data and about your business. And the fun part, the actual part that data scientists love, comes in the next step, which is to build models. Here we talk about the real AI, the machine learning algorithms, deep learning algorithms, advanced statistics, any kind of neural networks, and all of those buzzwords that you have heard probably, they come into this stage. This is where data scientists open up their soul and they try to have fun and build something interesting. You have to keep in mind that many data scientists are very technical kind of people and they like to play with numbers. I also do. Here it is important not to lose sight from the business problem that we had before, because the ultimate decision whether your project is successful or not is not really how good your model is, how good your AI is, but the definitive part is Well, whether it improves your business. As simple as that. Does it make change in your business? Do people use it? Do people love it? Does it help you save you money, build new products, and so on? And sometimes it may be better to take the model that is not as good in terms of technology, in terms of accuracy, let's say, or F1 score or whatever, but take the other model that is faster, for example, or quicker to work with, or more user-friendly. So here you have to consider how to help your data scientists decide on the business context of the problem. And the last part, again, which often gets overlooked, but without which nothing really makes sense in the business context, you have to take action. Because AI usually doesn't take action for you. It can tell you, well, I predict that a customer is likely to churn, but it doesn't tell you what to do with that. So at this stage, business leaders have to come back into the page, into the foreground, let's say, and set up decisions. What do we do if this happens? What do we do if this happens? And then their teams, team leads, and also functional employees, they need to support, they need to understand why it's important. This is this user acceptance part. They need to understand why it's important. They need to enjoy working with it and take action. Create send discounts, replace a machine, decide on the new payment schedule. Those are all things that look good on the slide as a bullet points, but it means actual change in how the company works. Some of those changes might be easier, like changing payment schedule is relatively easy when you switch your batch payment, for example. This is, again, coming back to my case study, why I said that it's relatively easy to implement, because data is there and also action part is relatively easy. But some of these actions are not that easy. So again, you have to consider the areas where you can have the most impact. All right, here is the data science process. I hope it looks clear. Again, ask me questions in the chat, in the Q&A. And right now, I would like to talk a little bit about the roles that you need. For example, you have seen this process and you think, okay, sounds great. I know what to do. I know how to proceed. Which kind of people do I need? Well, yeah, this is which kind of people do you need. Looks pretty simple. You need executive leadership involved on the business side, because without a sponsor in the company, as you know, few projects survive. You need the department lead. For example, for cash discount case study, you would need to talk to head of finance or head of accounting or head of shared services. For procurement use cases, again, head of procurement, and so on and so forth. You'd also need to involve the team lead that would guide the execution and the implementation of the actions in his or her team, and also function specialists. Function specialists are the actual people doing the job. An accountant, for example, a purchasing manager. They sit at their screens and they do the thing. Those, I list them last, but definitely not least. Those are the actual people who will determine the ultimate success of your project. On the tech side, different skill set, of course, different roles are needed. Data engineer, data scientist, IT support. This is kind of a generic project team for a data science AI project. Sometimes you would have somebody like a product manager or a scrum master for a little bit bigger projects, let's say. If they grow above 4 or 5 people, often the scrum master is a good gain for your project. For smaller projects, not always necessary, but might be useful as well. Think about your context and the landscape. And on this next slide, I talk a little bit about the expertise and the skill that those people have. So on the business side, of course, you need to understand the strategy of the company. First important thing, if the company's strategy is not aligned completely with using data for business purposes, it's going to be hard. You first need to talk to executive leadership to understand if they're interested and how they are interested. On the other side, team management, again, those are real people using AI solutions in the end, and they have to be ready to use it. They have to be motivated and interested. And the next part is change management, because every kind of project needs to be developed over time. Those actions need to be taken, and without proper change management, it's hard to actually see them come to life. On the tech side, you have a lot of different skills. I'm talking right now from my perspective, my experience with working with enterprise software. For other kinds of projects, a little bit different skills might be needed. If you have a specific question about the project, you can hit me up in the Q&A session or later on over the email. But for this kind of projects that I have just described, these are the skills. ETL stands for extract, transform, load. This is how you get the data out of the system. SQL is the language to work with data on the databases. You have to understand your enterprise resource and planning systems, as I mentioned, ERP or Oracle, Microsoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, you name it. You have to understand how data lakes and databases work. You have to know statistics, work with Python or some other programming language. My language is Python mostly, that's why it says it here. You have to understand machine learning, what it means, how to develop models. Here, usually it's not required to have kind of research type of understanding. Like usually you don't need to know how to build a model from scratch, from zero, because you can use different kind of frameworks and libraries to make it easier for you. And also you need to understand basics of visualization, because you need it for reporting to tell the story, what you've done with your project. All right. I hope it's clear. Again, open for questions in the Q&A session. So now you tell me, all right, Dennis, all right, Paul, guys, love the presentation. Everything is clear now. Where do I start? What do I do? So this is more or less from the experience that I have had. I didn't list every possible step, but just the general steps on the AI journey. And again, as I have congratulated you before, you are already in the step 2. You have shown your interest. You have enrolled in this webinar. You're trying to understand how it can help your business or your career, how you can use it. The second step is essentially commitment. It's essentially saying that, well, yeah, I actually want to try something out. I want to build something. I want to generate value in my company. Of course, the stage of getting interested and collect information can take a while, but to make a step, you need to make some kind of decision, I would say. Then you have to assess your data landscape, understand the systems that you have to see if they're ready. Then you have to find applications. I spoke about finding applications before, as you remember, about the value chain, as well as the business case, as well as the understanding which kind of parts are interesting for you in terms of low effort and high impact. Then you conduct a pilot. That's the part where you take the real action. You conduct a pilot project on a particular use case that you have found is useful for your company. And then you reap the benefit. You see how much money you have saved, how many jobs you created, how the quality has improved, how much less downtime your company has, all that nice stuff. And then the next step is, well, to go further, to implement it in production. What I mean production, use it day to day. Not just like pilot project is usually a one shot. You do it once and then it's there. The thing is that to achieve real benefit and change, you need to translate that pilot project into day-to-day practice and how your people work. And this is implemented in production. Not to overwhelm you with this, what I think you might need to focus on and understand is how to do the pilot, because you will be able to think in terms of, okay, we have a project, we have a goal, this is what we do, and you will be able to better understand, I believe, I hope, to understand how to go there. So how to do pilot, I have a simple recipe. Do one-time data extract. Don't create a data lake if you don't have it yet, because data integration takes time and takes effort. So do one-time extract. It can be through a database, through Excel, through an application programming interface, API. Second point, do the low-effort setup. So try to use systems that are relatively easy to access, that have relatively clean data that I mentioned before, and systems that are in some way valuable. The third thing is high-value business case. Again, reminding you of the value chain, these three things that we had before. This AI project has to bring some value. I'm not a fan of doing AI just for the sake of AI. It may be fun, but it doesn't usually bring any change. It may be a fun project which everybody forgets about in a month. So get a high-value business case, something that people, your colleagues, your boss, your vendors, your customers will love and appreciate. And how to identify those, you have to find the balance. This interfaces between departments, as I speak about them on the left side, essentially where two departments clash. If you have procurement and accounting, for example, the communication and working together between them is often this kind of interface where some problems can occur and where AI can be very beneficial. Or production and quality management. Again, they're closely tied together, usually still different people working on that, usually a lot of mismatch, a lot of problems. And the second part you can see with the, on the right side, the outdated business models. If you know that somewhere in your company you're doing a lot of manual work, that it's high volume work, that it's something that people hate to do, solve it. Like, throw some money at it, hire some people, do a project there, because it's not only, again, not only about the exact cost saving, it's also that people will love it. And if people will love it, they will be much more open for future projects as well. All right. Again, this is a snapshot, a summary of what we have learned today. To summarize the webinar, because we're nearing the end of today's session, we have learned today what is AI. We went through the definitions of AI. We went how AI can accelerate your business, what it can do in terms of accounting and maintenance, approval processes, and so on. We have done a bunch of case studies. We have understood how to apply AI in the company, how to find those sweet spots in your business, in your value chain to apply AI, how the process looks like, and how you can actually take the first step and start your pilot project. I hope it was useful for you. And again, remember, as soon as it becomes possible, it's not AI anymore. I thank you a lot for the attention. I've seen a lot of questions popping up that we will come to right now together with Paul. Yeah. So yeah, let's start answering questions. Let me open the.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. We have 34 questions, so
yeah, it's quite a lot.
Maybe we should pick up some of them, not to make the session too long. And then we will be always open in a one-to-one to get in contact with us, and we can solve that, right?
Yeah. All right. I see the well. First, the questions are saying hello to you, Paul. Glad that people like your presence here. That's kind of nice. The third question: differences between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. This is a question that many people ask, so I will answer it quickly. So as I mentioned, AI is a field of study. Essentially, AI, you can imagine, is this like huge thing where research and practice come together. ML, or machine learning, is essentially a practical application, one of the ways how to practically apply AI that is based on different kinds of statistical approaches. And you have many methods there in machine learning. You have random forests, you have also simple linear regressions. They're also actually considered machine learning. You have more advanced methods like boosting and so on. And deep learning is essentially the smallest part. Usually it is considered the part of machine learning, and deep learning is all about neural networks, in particular deep neural networks. And what it means that they have many layers. Essentially, since neural networks can be represented as systems of linear equations, algebraic equations, you can think of this as having more variables and more equations. This is how it becomes deep. Hope it answers the questions. Okay, how does one rank performance? I don't really understand this question, to be honest. I'll jump over. Greg Bisick, if you clarify your question, maybe we can answer it later. Decisioning. Well, another question is interesting, but it's a very long one to answer. Yeah, well, another question that is being asked a lot: AI and machine learning algorithms are only as good as the quality of the training data. Most businesses struggle with both unstructured data and contaminated data. Do you have any recommendations to overcome these challenges? This is a question by Michael Fuchs. Yeah, this is true. The algorithms and the solutions are only as good as the underlying data. Well, the first recommendation that I have given is try to find the cleanest data that you possibly can in your company. It may sound kind of silly, but the point is that depending on the system, depending on the department, it differs a lot. Some people fill out their forms carefully, some are not. So look into that. Incorrectly logged outcomes. Sometimes you can average out some parts of the outcome, depends. You can sometimes make inference based on some attributes of your data. For example, if you always know that this is the person with this last name doing a particular thing, and then they mistyped their own last name, for instance, you can pretty surely say it's a typo, for example. Things like duplicate checking, like removing duplicates out of the data, is also relatively advanced right now. It rarely gives you like 100% of certainty, but you can do something with that. Also, there are some solutions based on AutoML, automated machine learning, that try to clean your data automatically. And well, the more generic approach, take care of your data. Ensure if you want to become a data-driven organization, that you take care of the data and you make sure that it's clean in the future, at least. Can I share some examples of non-compliance with GMP standards? Well, no, I cannot share the examples because it's relatively easy to know which companies I work with. So it's kind of a secret data. I wouldn't like to share it, but generally speaking, let's say the procedure in testing of a particular drug has not been followed precisely. Something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, also something that often is being asked about AI, artificial intelligence, and RPA, robotic process automation. You can say that those are relevant to each other, although most RPA vendors do not actually use any AI capabilities. Some of them are building, some of them trying, but most of them are not really doing this like in an advanced way. The relation is interesting in the sense that RPA generates a lot of data. RPA generates a lot of data every day. It can be hundreds of thousands, millions of transactions per day, which is great for AI algorithms because you can train from them. You can, for example, predict failures of the bots, or you can predict also the most efficient path in the process and change your process in the end. So yeah, they're relevant for each other, but not the same. Okay, this one question about customer analytics, it's kind of a big question. I will try to answer it later, maybe in the email. It can take a long time to answer. How do you leverage existing processes? I'm not sure about the question from Angela Paul. How do you leverage existing processes at a pharma company, the involvement of existing control functions? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you can clarify. Well, good question. By Jan Kaiser, case study, maintenance optimization. How do you determine the amount of prevented maintenance cases? Well, very simple. You look at the historical data. You look at how many cases would have occurred during this time period at this plant with this kind of machines, and then you see how many you could have prevented. That's the simplest approach. Another kind of approach, which is more real time, it depends, because in the maintenance optimization use case, there are actually two different use cases. This was about the first one with the maintenance process. With the prediction of the downtime, what can also happen is that you predict it right before it happens. Essentially, you see that the machine is going to break down tomorrow, and instead of waiting until it breaks down, and this is pretty precise, like when the parts of the machine are coming apart, like the metal is coming apart, you can know by the vibration of the machine when this is going to happen quite precisely. And instead of waiting until it breaks down tomorrow or in 1 week, you set up a new machine and you count this as preventing the production downtime. But good question. Thank you. Question by Michael Cooper. Doesn't AI involve anything, analyzing the huge amounts of data and requires huge computational power? Michael proceeds to ask if today's computational power will not be enough in the future. This is a very, very relevant question if you are working on the very cutting edge. If you are Google or Facebook, yes, they worry about that. Google, for example, invented their own hardware chip to fight that. NVIDIA, the company that produces graphical processing units, GPUs, that many gamers among you would recognize, they have grown like crazy in the past 5-7 years because of deep learning, because it gives you more power. The point is, in most of the companies, if you're talking about the internal data of ERP systems, it's very, very far from the amount that can actually prevent you doing your job as a data scientist. So if you have 100 million invoices per year, which not many companies have, there are like probably 5,000 companies on earth that have that many invoices. From what I've seen, again, maybe you have small transactions, you have more. The point is that even 100 million invoices is a lot, but for many use cases, it's not too much. Like it's doable. Yeah, but definitely computational power can become an issue, because like one statistic from 2012 to 2019, I believe, the computational power used for deep learning systems has increased 300,000 times in like 7 years. This is crazy. I don't remember the source, to be honest. I don't remember. I read it somewhere like around a year ago, but it's a crazy statistic. Okay, Fred Kai is asking a really good question. Is it usually possible to launch trustable pilots on such AI projects? How much effort and time would it take to validate whether a full project and implementation is worth it? I will even take a sip because this is a big question. I try to answer it quickly. Yes, it is possible. No, it is sometimes not easy. The point is you have to understand which kind of data sample you are taking. If the sample is basically representative of what you want to do. I usually advise companies to take the sample at least for 1+ year. That's kind of the smallest I suggest doing a pilot project with, because if you take just for 1 month, you may get some numbers out. Like in the cash discount use case, you will get some numbers, but they're not reliable. Yeah, maybe in this month was especially bad for you, and then you have very high potential of the project, maybe 15%, for example. And you'll be like, oh my God, 15. But in reality, over the year, it smooths out. This is why I was talking between 2 and 5% of savings. Also, to add to this, it's case-by-case basis. Sometimes it is difficult to assess. Sometimes it's easy to assess. So it depends on your project. Countable. I really love your question, guys. Very thoughtful questions, actually. I really enjoy them. It shows that you put in some thought. So the question by Angela Paulk, I think we had a question from her as well. And she's asking, when developing an AI solution, do you help the company determine and establish who's accountable for the oversight? And then she talks about financial institutions. There needs to be an accountable person. That is a great question because, as I mentioned in the middle of the webinar, there should be executive buy-in. You have to have a sponsor, but you also have to have a champion. As we call them, those are champions. This is a person inside of the company. It cannot be me or Pau. We cannot really do that. It should be somebody in your company who really likes the project. And this is important. Only the person who is appointed to be a project manager, usually not the best decision. For a simple reason, if the person doesn't really burn for it, it may be difficult to implement an innovative solution. And research and convince people and so on might be difficult. So the person who is actually interested and knows a little bit about AI is usually much better. They're also much better at convincing other people to share the data, to be involved in the project. So this kind of champion is very, very useful. And of course, this champion would be also then accountable for the fate of the project. Important is put the incentives right. Do not make the stakes too high for the pilot, because pilot is a pilot essentially. It's to try it out. It's to test and see how far you can go. And usually people can go farther than they think if they give it a little bit of thought. Good question, thank you. And Angela also asked another good question. Have there been examples of AI failures? Let's be honest, yes, of course. Any kind of project has failures, and any kind of technology has its limitations. So for AI, the most often reason for failure, I would say, well, two reasons. First is access to data, that it's not possible to get the access to data in the short time frame because of access, because of user rights, because of security measures that are taken in the company. This is indeed a big problem often. This is why I like to have some runway before the project starts. So if you would tell me, hey Dennis, let's start a project today, I would say, hey, no, let's start it in June or July. And until then, we would figure out, for example, the access to the databases and so on. That's the first reason. Second reason is the users, are the users. If people don't use it, if they don't like it, forget it. Like it's just not going to work. You can have the best data scientist, the best champion, the best model, deep learning, all that. If people don't use it, it's not gonna roll. Quick off. Freelancer expert. So there is another question. If you want to do a quick off AI project, should you look for external consultancy or freelancer expert external support? Well, this question depends on what you want to achieve. In the very beginning for the pilot, it's usually easier to get external support if you don't have a data science team in place, or if your data scientists are specialized in some area that you don't have access to. If you consider consultancy or a freelance expert, you can definitely do that. You need to do the background check. You need to understand if the skill applies to your use case. This is very important because there are many areas of machine learning and AI. I have mentioned them on the skill slide. If, for example, you want to do audio generation, I cannot really help you. I know the use case. I like it a lot. I find it fun. I love music, so I also have a couple of music use cases, but I cannot really do that. I work with different kinds of data with different systems. So if you are looking for somebody working on ERP, sure. If you need more access, you can ask Pau if they have people to help you out, unless you have some internals in the team. Sorry, how much time we have?
Yeah, we have. Well, we said to last one hour, and it's already 6,
yeah, it's already a bit
minutes.
more.
I don't know if we can, because we have also more people also place questions in the chat, so I'm not sure if we can pick up maybe the most important and then do a one-to-one or send it in an email afterwards.
Yeah, I mean the questions are actually pretty good. It's hard to pick them out because everything that I just mentioned. Okay, let me do one run. I will pick 2 questions that are like the top notch, and I will answer them quickly, and the rest we will follow up. Don't worry, I will answer all the questions. We'll follow up, I believe, in the email, right, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll follow up with all of the answers, so don't worry. Data sufficiency. Okay, this one is not bad. Specialists. This is pretty good. Oh, sorry. Can we get the DAG to use process mining? Well, one question very dear to my heart. I will quickly answer it. Data model. Yeah, the questions are really good. The questions are really good. This timeline, data govern. The questions are amazing. Like I will make sure to answer all of them because some questions are just they're pretty deep. It's good. Different methods. 1 second. I'm reading through the questions. Give me 1 second. Robots. Model. Governments. Okay. Okay, well, some of the questions were pretty technical about Python and R, test train splits, and so on. I will skip those questions for now. I will reply to them in the email. Couple of questions that I find interesting. Well, first, the very simple one about process mining. Somebody asked, yes, process mining can be used with great success to identify the use cases. I used to work at Solonis, which is a process mining company. This is their use case for my heart. Thanks for asking. This is a good question. By Sami Tayara. I hope I pronounced your names well. Sorry if I mispronounced them. So the question is, my question is that AI use cases require collaboration of multiple specialists who handle different parts of the data lifecycle, from the collection to analytics to injection in business processes. What is the ideal team we can bundle in terms of complementary skills so that they can actually deliver on such AI use case? Well, this is a great question. I answered it to some extent here on the roles. Here you can see essentially the ideal team. Leadership, department lead, team lead, function specialist, data engineer, data scientist, and IT support. This is the ideal team that you can imagine. However, you have to always keep in mind that it depends very much on your company structure. There is no one size fits all in terms of team, in terms of algorithms, in terms of approach, in terms of data extraction tools. This is rarely the case. This is one of the problems actually in data science that is very specific, kind of depending on the IT landscape and the team setup and the business of a company. Keep that in mind that you have to balance this out, be a little bit entrepreneurial, like give it a thought, talk to people in the company, see who is actually interested, and then see if you fill in the gaps according to these roles. And also another important point was, what is the timeline for the data science process? Which steps are the most time consuming? Well, it depends. Sometimes you can finish a project in, let's say, a month if you have relatively clean data and everything's fine. Sometimes it can take 6 months, even more. Depends very much on your setup. The longest parts are often getting the data and cleaning and preparing the data. It sounds surprising for many people not familiar with how it actually works, but usually cleaning and preparing the data takes anything between 60 and 80% of the data scientist's work. This is for the data scientists. Of course, if you involve product managers, scrum masters, and executive leadership, they also need to spend some time, but generally speaking, cleaning and preparation takes the longest. Quick use cases, pilot. On your pilot, you should aim, I would say, for 2-3 months project, something like that, after which you can get the ROI. For the productive, 3 months up, depends very much on your infrastructure. If you have good infrastructure, can be just a couple of months, depending also on the use case. I mean, a lot of things. Good question in terms of understanding the perspective. With that, Paul, I think we should wrap it up because we already.
Perfect. Many thanks.
Yeah.
Very interesting, Dennis. Super interesting. So thank you everybody for your attention. We will leave here the webinar. We will send an email with some of these questions that are pending to be responded with a proper response.
Mm-hmm.
And see you in the next time. Thank you very much. And if you need anything, we left our emails in the screen before. Just contact us, and it will be a pleasure to respond. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
In my side, Barcelona.
See you, everybody.
From Munich, right?
Yeah.